Floating offshore wind is a technology which uses conventional wind turbines on floating platforms, which allows us to access deeper waters. We have a pipeline of projects which amounts to around about 5 gigawatts by 2035. That starts with the smaller projects, and then we work all our way through to 3 very large 1.5 gigawatt projects in the Celtic Sea, which will start to build in 2029.
The significance of flow for Cornwall, the wider region and the UK cannot be overstated. The Celtic Sea is one of the leading sites globally for the deployment of floating offshore wind, with the potential for up to 100 gigawatts. Cornwall has always played an important role in powering the UK. And as we think about a green transition, never has this been a more important contribution for us to be making into the future.
The Celtic Sea is probably the 3rd largest pipeline of floating offshore wind projects in the world. The way that we've got to that is with a very clear strategy. Phase 1 was a policy engagement which started about 5 years ago. Phase 2 was creating a market. That's in place as well. So we're now in phase 3, and that really involves building local capacity.
When people think of Cornwall, they think of our rich maritime industry. And we've got some very significant ports and maritime infrastructure. Falmouth, the 3rd largest natural harbour in the world, with AMP, is already gearing up and investing in the infrastructure to support the floating offshore wind industry. And indeed, we've been, as Cornwall Council, co-investing using our Shared Prosperity Fund to build the infrastructure that is needed.
We've got a really good offshore renewable energy heritage as well. Companies in the region have been working in this sector for at least 15 years and across the needs of the sector, so all the way from the installation of offshore renewable devices like tidal turbines and wind turbines through to the design of ships to support that installation.
Tugdock is a product that was designed initially for lifting vessels, basically getting the vessel from the water onto the quayside or lifted up to do repair and maintenance. Very early on, it was clear that floating offshore wind had a similar problem in that the very large structures needed to be built somewhere, and they needed to be built in shallow water. There is hundreds of gigawatts that need to be installed, which equates to thousands of turbines. Those turbines are very large in the sense that they could be as big as the Eiffel Tower. And we just continue to develop and scale our product to fit the scale of floating offshore wind. As a region, the Greater Southwest has a huge opportunity, and collaboration is key to that. We're working together with a lot of local businesses, but also looking, with Ireland, with Wales, collectively looking at the bigger picture to develop these projects. I think there has to be joined up collaborative thinking, really.
Because of the scale of the opportunity, we know we can't do it on our own. So we're working hand in glove with our Celtic Sea neighbours, in particular the Welsh Government, but also the Great Southwest and the West of England Combined Authority. The overall opportunity, we think, is going to be into the hundreds of billions of pounds by the late 2040s. But before that, the 4.5 gigawatt projects, they're going to be about 20 billion pounds worth of investment to make them work. The critical area for us at the moment is making sure that government policy is coordinated. It's been built up over the 15 years or so of the industry, and in a rather fragmented way. What we are trying to do with this work, we call it the missing middle, is how do we integrate all these different levers in a way which helps us build local capacity. We think we can do that differently and better, but what it requires is coordinated policy planning, and the missing middle work sets that out in comprehensive detail.
I think that the time for floating offshore wind is now. It's been talked about for a long time. We've seen, though, recently some very clear signalling from the government that we are going to see deployment of floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea between now and a period of up to 2035, with that first tranche being in place. The government's also backing the deployment of flow through the recently agreed Cornwall devolution deal, in recognition that there's work to do to speed up the licensing and regulatory framework to make sure that this industry gets deployed quickly. We're excited to play our part in bringing floating offshore wind to the UK.